Hey guys, Chef Ryan here, back with another video about the kitchen and about cooking. Hey, so in this video, what we're gonna do is we're gonna cover some of the basic cooking techniques that you would use at home with the equipment that you have access to. Now, there's different cooking techniques, and there's some that we're not gonna cover in this video that you may experience if you go to a restaurant because they have special equipment in those restaurants, and especially if you go to a really nice, fancy restaurant where you have a five-star chef who has some really fancy equipment and can do different fancy style cooking techniques with with some specialty equipment. But what we're going to do is discuss basic cooking techniques that you would be able to do while you're cooking at home with some basic equipment that you have available in your house. So one of the very first and the easiest ones that we're going to cover starts with using a pan, kind of just like this. So it's called direct heat cooking. And you can probably imagine why they call it direct heat, because what you're cooking is going directly on the surface of what it is that you're using to cook the food on, okay? So direct heat means that your food or what it is that you're cooking is actually making direct contact with the heat source. So whether or not you have an electric stove, a gas stove, what you're doing is you're heating the pan and you're putting your food directly on the surface of that. So your food is making direct contact with the cooking surface or with the heat. So direct cooking. So you're gonna saute, you're gonna do eggs, you can do pancakes, you'll do, whatever, veggies or anything like that. Direct heat cooking, okay? So the next one is kind of the opposite of that is indirect heat. So indirect heat is going to be if you're using a grill, because you have your grate that you're going to put your food on, but the heat is not directly touching that. It's coming up from underneath, right? So you've got a space between where your surface is and your grill is, right? And then the heat source, whether it's charcoal or gas, that's coming up from underneath. Now, your grill is also considered ambient cooking because it's creating heat all through the grill. So if you close that lid of the grill, you're getting heat cycle all the way through inside of that grill, and it acts somewhat like an oven, which is another source of ambient cooking. So anytime you're baking or roasting or braising even, you're going to be using what's called ambient heat, and that's going to be in an oven or an enclosed space, okay? So now there are some combinations in this, and you can use multiple cooking techniques to cook something at the same time. So you could use direct and ambient at the same time. So if I had a pan that had direct heat and I put my piece of food on that pan, and then I put a lid on it. The lid traps the heat in there and creates ambient temperature all the way through the inside of that enclosed area. So that would be a combination of direct and ambient heat. Just like I said, your grill is indirect and ambient heat. And blooper, blah, blah, blah. Cut. Okay, so we're back from the blooper. Did you enjoy that? Okay, so the fourth type of cooking technique that we cover is submerging. So that's when you're going to use a stock pot or a soup pan or a soup pot, and you're going to completely submerge what it is that you're cooking in either, say, oil, like if you're frying, that's submerged, or if you're cooking in water or stock. So for example, if you're making a pot of chicken noodle soup and you want to make your stock first, then you can boil your whole chicken in water to kind of help create your broth, right? So that would be submerged cooking. And again, some of these you can do multiple types, right? So if you're braising something and you're using a shallow pan and you partially submerge the item that you're cooking, but you're cooking that in the oven, you're using a combination cooking technique of submerging and ambient temperature. So again, your major cooking techniques are going to be direct. This is where you're placing the food directly on the heat source, whether it's your pan or a griddle. You have indirect, which is something like your grill, where your cooking surface is elevated above the heat source. We have ambient cooking, which is going to be your oven or a smoker or a grill, okay? And then we have submerged, which is basically you're taking the food, taking the item that you're cooking, and you're submerging it in either an oil or a water to create a broth, or if you're just boiling something, noodles for pasta, spaghetti, one of my favorites, okay? So those are the majority of your basic cooking techniques. There's others that we could go on about, but the basic cooking techniques that you would use at home with the equipment that you have in your house are going to be direct, indirect, ambient, and submerged. All right, so in our next video, what we're gonna do is we're gonna actually use direct heat to cook an egg. So I hope you guys catch me on the other side. In the next video, we're going to demonstrate direct heat cooking. See you there.